Dunke Afe has come to join me this morning. Dunke, thank you so much for giving up your time to go through some questions with me this morning. I can't wait to get stuck in and hear all about your career journey to date. So thank you.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Suzie. I'm thrilled to be here and to have this chat with you.
Excellent. So I'm going to give a brief context in terms of your kind of background career to date. And I say brief because actually it's just quite overwhelming in some respects, all the things that you do. I kind of wonder whether you actually sleep. So for people listening, so really senior marketeer. So you're really a senior kind of board level marketeer, non-exec director and board advisor now in terms of that kind of mix of roles or hats that you wear. And your skill area is really strong in terms of strategy, brand, digital marketing. And to give a flavour of some of the roles that you've done, so most recently with the Estee Lauder Group, with global marketing for Jo Malone, and I know previously Kimberly Clark, and many years at Unilever as well. So an FMCG and luxury queen, I think, in that in terms of the brands. So what would be really helpful is, would you mind, because you're everyone listening be like, well, these brands are amazing, these roles are great, how did you get there? So could you please give a bit of an insight to your career to date and actually all the roles and kind of advisory work that you work on at the moment?
Sure, and what a generous introduction. Thank you so much. I would say that, a lot of my career has been due to me saying yes to opportunities. And so when I started in the world of FMCG with Unilever, I stayed there for over 2 decades. And during that time, I worked on some amazing brands and categories. And I think working with Unilever in many ways defined my career journey, because in such a massive organization, you have great opportunities to work across geographies, to work across categories. And so my marketing role started as a graduate and slowly worked my way up to a senior director and working across categories in laundry, foods, personal care, across markets, starting with the UK, Middle East, Africa, North Asia, South Asia, Latin America. And after 2 decades, I kind of felt like it kind of whizzed past. Like I couldn't believe it. It was like 20 years. And I thought, I want to do something slightly different. And so I took a few new opportunities. As you say, the first was with Kimberly Clark. There was an exciting opportunity to look after the emerging markets business within EMEA, Europe, Middle East, Africa, personal care. And I jumped on it and I loved it. And then an additional opportunity then came later on to work with Estee Lauder on their global Jo Malone London brand. And I jumped on that.
Yeah.
And it was during the time that I was working on Jo Malone, looking after the global brand, marketing operations, that my first board opportunity came up. And this is why I say, a lot of my career has been saying yes to opportunities. And I didn't really know anything about what it meant to be a non-exec, but I was curious enough to understand and find out why. And I really enjoyed the combination of governance, oversight, finance, strategy, marketing, legal that was required. And so much so that when the second opportunity came with BlackRock's smaller company, I decided to kind of really pivot into a portfolio net opportunity. And not long after that, the 100 Allies board advisor role opportunity came up. And one of the things about being a non-exec director, one of the benefits I would say is that your time is yours to manage. And so it gives me the opportunity to fulfill a lot of my passions, one of which is coaching. So I'm an executive coach as well. And it's something I've been doing for 10 years, but it's something I can do more of today. And I also actually have time to do a bit of consulting. So I don't quite know how I cram that into a week, but I somehow managed to do it quite well.
That's my original point, that I don't know if you sleep. So just saying yes and being curious are what have kind of helped you put yourself in the right place at the right time to kind of take advantage of these opportunities. Really good for you. Good.
Absolutely. I think
Good.
curiosity is so important. When opportunities come, and also looking out for those opportunities. I don't know how many people will see emails from their LinkedIn profile saying, do you want to have a chat about something? And people say, oh, I don't have time. I always have time for that. I'll meet somebody, I'll have a conversation. And I'm not one that will say no immediately. I always want to know more. And so being curious, I think, has actually helped my career pivots. And I've always kind of landed quite well, I have to say.
What about the confidence that then ties in with that? Because there will be people listening thinking, well, I want to say yes. I am curious and I want to say yes, but is it the imposter syndrome or the things
Yeah.
we have that kind of hold us back? Have you always naturally had the confidence to go, I can do this? Or have you got any tips for people who may be thinking, I want to be able to do this, but I can't quite pluck up the courage?
Yeah, I mean, there's two parts to this. I think part of being curious means you have to suspend fear. And part of being curious means that you have to be ready to take whatever the answer is and accept the journey that you go on. So there is a little bit of accepting that when you leap, you're not quite sure where you're going to land. But also, part of being curious means that you are asking questions. And there's nothing wrong with asking questions. So when I got my first board opportunity and I didn't know what it was, I genuinely was quite honest and I said, I don't know what this is. Can you talk me through it? Can you explain it to me? And then I did a little bit of thinking to say, do my skills match the opportunity? And when I see that they do, why won't I go for it? And hopefully we get a chance to talk about falling forward, which is one of those things I really believe in, that every opportunity, you've got a chance to fall backwards or fall forward. And if you're falling forwards, in other words, you're learning from that opportunity, you really can't go wrong.
Oh, okay, right. We're gonna talk about falling forwards as we go through this. Then I like that. So you've worked with some really high profile brands that you've mentioned there. What a fantastic experience to have. Are there any standout moments from the work you've done with some of those brands?
Definitely. There have been several. I will mention a brand-centric one because I consider myself as a marketeer and a brand fanatic, if you like. I am especially proud of my time with Unilever on the laundry brand detergent. And although we're a laundry brand, and some people would consider laundry to be basic, boring category, we were able to create some quite compelling campaigns that offered a really strong point of view on societal issues. So, for example, the importance of playtime versus screen time for children. We were able to talk about getting dirty as the mark of a life that is fully lived versus a pale life with no experiences. We talked about, getting hands-on and creating great family moments outdoors versus staying indoors, working overtime, and possibly missing out on creating long-lasting connections.
Yeah.
And so taking those narratives across markets and executing campaign after campaign in markets like Person in the UK or Omo in Brazil, for me, it was just a great experience. And seeing how consumers related to what was a seemingly basic brand, making a real impact in their lives, will never kind of go away from me. And for me, that's the power of really good brands and really good marketing.
Yes, I think you did some exceptional work during your time there as well. So strategic leadership is something that you have a deeply honed skill in.
Yeah.
And I wonder, you've worked in a number of organisations. Are there any common themes for organisations when it comes to strategy in your experience?
Yeah. And there is a lot of that's being said about strategy. There's a lot of themes about how you lead and how you operate business strategically. And I constantly think about two parts to this. There is the what, and then there is the how. And when you think about the what, the first thing that comes to my mind is visioning. And this is kind of textbook. So every successful strategy should start with a shared vision about, or your North Star of what you want to achieve. And I think that's never been more important than today, where you've got so many conflicting news, views, opinions, and sensitivity. So the power of a solid vision is so much more important than it ever was. And it's not only got to be a shared vision, it's got to resonate, and it's got to inspire, and it's got to galvanize action for employees. So that's one, visioning. I think supporting visioning is drive and delivery. And I put the two together because it's great to have a vision, but there's got to be an ability to translate that into action and tangible results. And ensuring that there is an alignment. So for me, that is fundamental to great strategy and actually strategic leadership as well. Then there is the how. One interesting theme I was talking to a client about recently was how AI impacts our lives. And actually, not only just does it impact our lives, it impacts business, and it impacts leadership. And so leaders can start to think about embedding AI into their strategic decision-making process, using AI to help them analyze data, pull out insights, and then make decisions. So it can really help in that way. Another big theme, and I'm really passionate about this, is inclusive and equitable leadership. When we think about the how, because when leaders think and act inclusively and equitably, what they create are environments where collaboration and diverse perspectives can thrive. And that is what will drive innovation, performance, and business success. I mean, there's so many more, but I'm going to stop there.
I get the feeling you'd be on a roll. Some really interesting points that you've sort of mentioned there. And have you, the learnings that you just mentioned there, have you seen those across all of the businesses? Are they kind of common themes than you would have seen across all of those companies?
Absolutely. So in my time in Unilever, the visioning was really critical, followed by the drive and the delivery. And inclusive leadership was such a key pillar of how we worked and collaborated. And if you think about it, such a big organization with multiple structures and layers, there was a need to be inclusive to kind of make things work and get views to work. I mean, AI wasn't a big thing back in the day, but definitely using insights was. And I saw the same themes in Kimberly-Clark, where smaller business, the need for visioning and drive was really critical, especially when you're thinking about really challenging, complex market environments. It's so important to have a really clear approach, but also to be kind of really clear on how do we execute well and ensure we're meeting the objectives that we set out. And exactly the same with Estee Lauder and John Malone, where the focus on inclusion is so strong and it's actually part of the ethos of the brand. This is something that I see all the time. And with people that I consult with, it's something that I really talk to them to put in place. What you will find is people will have visioning, but they might not have drive and delivery really well thought through, or are not thinking about how we can use AI as a strategic tool. They use it as part of the functions, but don't see how it could be used in decision making. And it can. It definitely can.
They clearly do it very effectively, but to your point is that it's how you kind of, you've got your North Star, you've got your visioning, and then it's how that translates into those tangible results, isn't it? And
Absolutely.
you have sophisticated processes that you went through for all of those areas.
Yeah, absolutely.
So sort of looking forward then in terms of the year ahead, what do you think will be some of the priorities for senior leaders in the forthcoming year?
Funny enough, it's some of the things that we just talked about. I think and it's kind of all of the above. I really wish there was a silver bullet that I could offer out. I promise you I would package it and sell it and make loads of money. But there isn't. I think leaders have to navigate all of the above. Then they have to think about making the right choices and priorities for customers, stakeholders, employees, often with limited resources and in very competitive market environments, more so now than ever before. And there are other considerations that they have to navigate. So I think really being able to tap into the collective power of their business and their leadership, really using AI as a tool to enable quicker decision making, not to replace jobs, but to replace tasks, and really review their visioning and their drive and delivery as a way of getting things done in a more efficient and effective manner.
Okay. And then, we've obviously sort of talked about your career today, but the reason we started doing these sessions originally is because if you think about community of head and director and chief of level, there's a lot of people who'll be listening to this. If you think, oh, this sounds amazing, and how is there any sort of advice that you would have? So if you look back on your career, I'm sure you will have had all sorts of things shared with you that have kind of put you in a good situation. What piece of advice would you share with people who are looking to, I guess, two parts to this for me. What piece of advice would you offer to people who are looking to kind of get to that director or chief of level? And then specifically, given your experience, what about people who are looking to also do non-exec?
Right. Okay. So in terms of making the shift from manager to director, I think the first thing to recognize is that your functional experience is not what's going to get you to that level. It's really about your leadership experience and your leadership approach and style. And so my first advice is to really get people to think about, who am I as a leader, and why, in the words of this amazing book, why should anyone be led by you? And really understand who you are and your leadership style, and invest time in that. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What is your approach? What do people say about you? What do your peers say about you when it comes to leadership? What does your boss think about you as a potential leader? Have an honest look at that and define what your authentic leadership style is. And the other piece of advice that I was given a long time ago was, be comfortable with who you are as a leader. Chances are you're not going to change your trajectory that much, but you can be aware of it and you can hone it. So really be comfortable with your authentic leadership style, and then bring it to bear at work. Nominate yourself for projects, for tasks. Look for opportunities to show that you have what it takes to lead, and bring that to bear. One of the best leadership opportunities is not leading when you have a team, but it's leading your peers, multifunctional projects and things like that. So there are opportunities in your current role to show leadership. And then when you've done that, take some action. In your development conversations, let it be known that you want to take that next step. What is the gap that the business sees? What do you need to do to bridge that gap? Do you have a mentor or the sponsor to support you into that journey? And if you don't have one, acquire one. Make the investment in yourself to get there. That's what I would say on that part. On a NED role, there's a lot I could say. But the first thing I would say is, know what it means to be a NED. And that feels like a weird thing to say. Yeah. But life as a NED is very different to when you're an executive, because when you are a NED, you're pretty much not the leader and you're not the doer. Actually, you're more a consultant, coach, sparring partner. And there's this great expression about nose in, hands off, or hands out. So you're basically not doing the work, but you're advising, you're guiding, you're holding hands, and you're holding people accountable. Please be sure that you're ready for that. It's very different to being an executive, and it's a mind shift. Second thing is, be clear on what you bring to a non-executive board. As I said before, a good non-exec is like a consultant because of the experience that they have and the expertise that they have for that role. Be clear about what it is. Have a look at your CV and change it. So there's a lot of data online and resources online on what a NED CV should look like, and it's very different. So focus on the skills and experiences that you can contribute to a board. And then thirdly, network. A lot of board roles are not put on LinkedIn. So you might want to start looking at reaching some board search agencies and getting connected to them. You might have within your network on LinkedIn people who are already NEDs. Reach out to them, ask them for suggestions of who to reach out to. Search online for board agencies and join them. And the last thing I would say is, get skilled up on what it means to be a NED. There are a lot of courses out there. It's certainly worth the investment to build up your qualifications, because let's not forget there are legal and regulatory requirements in a lot of cases when you sign up to be a NED. So get skilled up. I said that was the last one. Actually, this is the last one. The final, the last thing I will say is start somewhere. A lot of times it's kind of like a catch-22. They want you to be a NED, so they hire you as a NED. But actually, if you are on a committee, if you are doing if you're volunteering on a school board, that is giving you some experience of what it means to be a NED. So start there and take it from there.
Brilliant advice. Thank you very, very much for that. So come on then, tell me about falling forward.
It's quite an interesting experience. So once upon a time, back in my days in Unilever, I really hated making mistakes because I felt it showed me up as not being a good manager. And one of my coaches said to me, well, how do you learn if you don't make mistakes? I said, yeah, but I don't like this idea of making mistakes. He says, well, okay, don't call it making mistakes. Call it falling forward. Because what it means is when you fall, you are learning. And so far as you take the learning out of that experience, it's not necessarily a mistake. So always think about taking the learning from that experience and utilizing it to improve yourself, hence falling forward. And that's something that I do everywhere I go. And it allows me to be a bit bolder about taking on new challenges, new risks, new opportunities, and facing the unknown, because I can always say to myself, well, what's the worst that could happen? You fall forward and off you go.
Brilliant. I absolutely love that. And that leads on perfectly to our last question about mindset. We talk a lot about the importance of mindset. From your coaching experience, where you will have been exposed to many senior leaders, is there anything that you can recommend here for senior leaders in terms of mindset?
Yeah, I have a lot of empathy and sympathy for being a senior leader in the world today. It's really complex, so many responsibilities to consider: business results, consumer needs, competition, macro trends, societal expectations. Oh, I could go on. And so there are two things I will say to any leader, and it's not going to be a surprise. One is having an inclusive mindset, and the second one is having a growth mindset to help navigate all of these complexities. When a leader has an inclusive mindset, what it means is that they recognize the need to make sure that they're getting inputs from their team and that their team is diverse. And that they're not just trusting a few people that look like them. And what that symbolizes is you are sharing that responsibility and you're giving that responsibility more often to the most expert people in the room. And we all know the benefits of what a diverse team brings to business. And it's not just something that stays at leadership, it should be a culture across the business. Growth mindset is kind of like falling forward. It's about learning from setbacks and challenges and using them to improve, and recognizing that the more volatile and uncertain the world is, the more setbacks and challenges are likely to occur. So be prepared for them and be ready for them. And don't penalize people when they fall into those traps of making mistakes. That's so critical to helping the organization grow and take some of those pressures off leaders.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Brilliant answers. And I greatly appreciate your time and your advice.
Oh, thank you so much, Suzie. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for having me.